Hi, I'm Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer, and I hear you and I've got you. Think of me as the one-stop shop for all your midlife needs. I'm a psychologist, registered dietitian, nutritionist, board-certified health and wellness coach, and mindful self-compassion teacher. I'm also an author and podcast host with over 30 years of experience empowering midlife women. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Rock Your Midlife. I am Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer, and so thrilled to have you here. It is my last show of 2022. And boy, I don't know about you, but 2022 has been a heck of a year for me. I started the show in March. 3 weeks after starting the show, I got hit with a breast cancer diagnosis, which flipped my world upside down. Had to do a lot of changing, some deep soul searching, kept the show going. And I'm honestly here to say that I'm truly the happiest I have ever been as an adult. My tumor taught me a lot. And today's show is all about how to make your own happiness at midlife. Because, midlife is a roller coaster. There is so much going on. You might have teenage, or in my case, adult kids and aging parents, and maybe you're going through menopause yourself, having your own health crisis, dealing with resources and finances, finding your purpose. And sometimes just wake up and you feel like, God, I just don't feel like myself anymore. Where's my joy gone? And I'm really here to tell you, whatever you are going through, you can change. Really, happiness, joy, confidence, energy, all of those things that we want more of in our lives are really, it's an inside out job. And, today it can be so hard because there's so much bad news on all fronts. And increasingly more and more women are struggling at midlife. We are facing challenges both at home and in the workplace. And, there sometimes doesn't seem to be all that much to be happy about. But the good news is that you don't have to wait for the world to get better to up your happiness. And my guest, who we will be getting to in a few moments, Mary Mitchell, is going to show you how to generate your own happiness no matter what your current life circumstances. So whether you are listening to this live and it is the end of 2022, or you're listening to this in the future, I think one of the most important things to do is really review. And that's something that I have been doing over the last couple of days. I also turned 60 a week ago, which was interesting because, I feel like a little kid, and I'm so happy with my life circumstances. Even with my cancer diagnosis, I feel so healthy and vibrant and alive. But, I had to really think about this thing called ageism, right? Is sort of out there. It's this ism we don't talk about a lot. I talk about a lot here on the show. Just really realizing that, gosh, so much to celebrate, no matter what age you are. It is so much about really living your life to the absolute fullest, which is what I have been doing. And really focused a lot on setting intentions. I know this time of year, we think a lot about New Year's resolutions, and I'm here to say New Year's resolutions, forget about it. They are, and Mary's laughing. She understands that, right? It's New Year's resolutions are all about like, what's wrong with you? Like, oh my God, I'm in debt and my waistline's larger than my bust line and these relationships aren't working. And it's always about like, being a failure, not being good enough. It's all about like heaping all the self-loathing on yourself. So I'm here to say, let's push the New Year's resolutions away. And I welcome you to set some New Year's intentions. And I'm here to help. I'm actually doing a New Year's intention setting workshop on January 11th. The link to grab that is in the show notes. You can also go over to my website, themidlifewhisperer.com. You can connect with me there or over at Instagram at _midlife_whisperer. If you want to know about the workshop, it's totally free. It's going to be awesome. It's going to help you to have more joy, more confidence, more energy in 2023, and really be working from this place of self-love, which is so much more powerful than self-loathing. Believe me, I did the self-loathing perfectionist dance for, most of my life. And one thing that my breast cancer taught me, the tumor, was just let go of the workaholic, let go of the perfectionism. we are all imperfect beings, and really lean into loving myself and really doing more of what lights me up. This year for me is really all about more joy and less oi. Having more joy, having more happiness, having more confidence, and more peace. And, before we bring Mary on, I wanted to share some of my lessons that I learned in 2022. I sent this out to my email list this morning. I've been doing a lot of, again, this sort of looking at my year. And I, again, encourage you to do that, to look at what did you learn? How did you grow? What challenges did you face? What good habits did you make? What do you want to change and transform? How do you want to grow? And most important, how do you want to feel in 2022? Because it really is all about how do you want to feel? And when we step into the feelings that we want, that's when we really manifest the joy, the happiness, the confidence, the peace that I think all of us really want. So here's 5 lessons that I learned this year. First, you can generate joy, that lasting, powerful state that results in feeling peaceful and content every single day. So these days I'm starting my day off with my morning meditation, thinking about how am I going to really expand in terms of joy and happiness today. So you can generate more joy, more peace, more happiness, all of those things. Number 2, health is everything. And, if you aren't healthy and as whole as you'd like to be, you can heal your body, your mind, your spirit, and your life. And being healthy doesn't have to be complicated. This year, I have been a dietitian, registered dietitian for 30 years. And I'm just always amazed at like the newest pill, the newest fad diet. Most of it is totally BS. If you want to be healthy, it's really all about eating more plants, eating less, and eating more unprocessed food. So eating a whole food, plant-based diet. So getting in those fruits, those veggies, and eating till you're satisfied, not stuffed. So really working on the emotional eating and really looking at food as a way to nourish and nurture your body. Getting sleep. I have been, really focusing a lot on getting sleep. I'm amazed at the power that sleep has in terms of our well-being, physically, mentally, spiritually, getting your water, having good, positive relationships. So health is everything, but you can really transform your health. And I've done a lot of soul searching, even though I was very healthy. My breast cancer diagnosis made me realize that there were areas of my life that I needed to work on. So you can heal your body, your mind, your heart, your spirit, and health really is everything. Number 3, you are never too old to fall in love, to learn, to grow, to find your purpose and feel like a kid again. Again, I turned 60 a week ago and I celebrated my butt off. I went to Quebec City. I had this amazing 4-hour, 20-course meal. Just had a blast with my fiance, Ken. It was wonderful. And, you only live once. And I'm really focusing on living my life to the fullest. I feel like I've reunited with my inner child. Number 4, family, however you define it, is so important. It is key for your health and your happiness. So you've got to nurture and nourish those important relationships every single day. When your kids are productive and when they're happy and they're balanced, it brings you joy. So your kids, your grandkids, your spouse, all of those relationships, your friends, your fur babies, you've got to really nourish and nurture those relationships. And number 5, kindness and gratitude never go out of style. Helping others helps you and has a ripple effect. I know that part of my passion and purpose is helping midlife women to really rock their midlives and to find their purpose. The Dalai Lama says that the world will be saved by the Western woman. And so if you're listening, you're probably a midlife woman living in the West. And even though I've got actually listeners all over the globe, but you're here to make a difference. And maybe that difference is making an awesome cupcake and delivering that to your neighbors. Maybe that difference is volunteering, teaching kids to read or doing hospice work, or maybe it is doing a podcast, whatever that is, you are here to make a difference in the world. You decided to be here for a reason, and the universe needs your light and love. The planet really needs you right now. So, and I guess the final thing too is confidence is so necessary, and confidence really comes from being authentic. I've learned a lot about social comparison this year and just being my best damn self, not looking at other people and being authentic, interacting with others from that place of confidence. The word confidence, the root of it is confined, learning to trust my true authentic self. And I think when you show up as yourself, you feel super confident, because let's face it, nobody can tell you you're doing it wrong, and there is no one like you in the universe. So let your light shine. So that's my little kind of end of the year thing. And just sort of as we jump into this wonderful topic of happiness, I can't wait to bring on Dr. Mary, because I know she's a rock star when it comes to helping people with their happiness. It's really an inside out job. You know, as the Talmud says, we do not see things as they are. We see things as we are. And it's so important to understand that you are the author of your life. You are responsible for your happiness, and your mindset is everything in terms of being happy. Just think about for a minute the last time you were maybe at the beach or somewhere really beautiful. You could go walk down the beach and you could think, oh my God, it's hot, it's sandy, there are bugs, I forgot my water, it's crowded. Or you could be on the beach and think, wow, look at the ocean, look at the sky, look at the waves, look at all these people having fun. Isn't this marvelous? But your perspective is so important, because we really see things as we are. And the more we look at the world through this lens of seeing the good, that doesn't mean that you don't take care of your difficult emotions. We're not talking about toxic positivity where we're Pollyanna and everything is always marvelous. It's not, but you take care of your difficult emotions, you love yourself, but you understand that, you know, you can't blame other people if you're not happy where you are in life. I'm telling you, you can be happy in 2023. Grab a piece of paper and a pen, because we are going to dive into happiness with my next guest. She is Dr. Mary Mitchell. She is an author. She is a speaker. She is a teacher who is sharing ancient truths that transform lives. She has literally helped thousands of people, from inmates to CEOs, attract the happiness that they want. She's going to reveal the steps that you can take starting today, starting as we flip the calendar, to ditch the anxiety, the stress, the worry, and seize that joy and choose happiness and success every day, even if you feel like you're surrounded by negativity. So welcome to Rock Your Midlife, Dr. Mary. So awesome to have you here.
Thank you so much. You know, I don't know if I could add too much to what you said. You've done a beautiful job so far.
Well, thank you. So I'm curious. I know we talked a little bit off the air. How did you get here? How did you get to this place? I know this is like a third act for you, where you are sharing joy and happiness, you know, at all ends of the spectrum, both people. I know you've done a lot of prison ministry, as well as helping highly accomplished people. How did you get to this place where you're, you know, a bit of a happiness guru?
Well, I have to go back to when I was a child. When I was 10, my father died, and my mother had to go to work to save our house and raise two teenagers. Well, I was 10, and she was so darn happy. I mean, they were soulmates, and yet she was so positive. There was nothing wrong, you know, and when she was barely scraping by, and when the milkman came to the house, we could get a chocolate milk. When the bread man came by, we could get a cupcake. And so my brother and I were oblivious to it, but she was so darn positive. Well, when I was 16, I read The Power of Positive Thinking, Norman Vincent Peale, and I went, he couldn't have written that book. My mother wrote that book, you know, and I was so, wait a minute, that's my mom. And yet, as I grew older, I realized it was her whole family, grandma, brothers, sisters, everybody. They grew up in the Depression. And no matter how hard it was, grandma always said, make it fun, make it fun. And so they did. And so we grew up with that attitude. And so I reread that book a dozen times, and I decided I'm embodying these principles. I'm living these principles. And so I did. And my life has just been a magical ride, really. My mom always said, become a secretary, then you'll always have a job. And I thought, okay, I was a little space cadet. So I did, and I did that really well. And then finally, I realized, well, there's got to be more to life than being a secretary. And I thought, I want to do something really big. So I decided to go to college, which girls didn't necessarily do back then. And I had been working in a lumber yard. And every time a person in the office left that job, I'd go to the boss. I'd say, I want to do their job. And so I would just keep coming up the rungs, learning all the pieces of running a business. And when I decided to go to college, we lived near Ohio State University, and I thumbed through the course catalog and I went, oh my God, there's more than being a secretary in this book. And here was a course in managing sawmills. And I went, I want that. So I have a degree in sawmill management.
That's crazy. But it's
And
interesting because it's kind of when I, talk to people about finding their passion and purpose, we
it
kind
is.
of know, but I think what happens so often is we hear all of these other voices that are saying, you should be this, you should do this, like your story of, girls shouldn't go to college, or you should be a secretary, and you just got hit with this. So how did the forestry management lead you into this being, a motivational speaker and talking about happiness, and also the prison ministry?
Well, the interesting thing is, as soon as I got out of college, I was hired by Crown Zellerbach up in Puget Sound to work with sawmills to buy wood waste to make paper at their paper mills. So it was a nice connection. And with my attitude and men's attitude, like, aren't you home baking cookies? Why aren't you doing that? It was a fun thing to be challenged just to be successful. And I was very successful. In fact, the pulp mill named a tugboat after me. My moment of fame. Anyway, I was married 21 years, and I had worked so hard that my husband had an affair, and they brought in a tough boss. He was really difficult. And I thought, this isn't worth it. So I applied for a job here in California to work with sawmills, to buy their wood waste, to burn, to make electricity, wood-fired power. And I came to California to do that. And it was a great time. And I really loved that. And then during that time, I wasn't dating or anything. And I thought, man, I got to meet some people. And my first night out, I met a whole bunch of people from the center that taught the science of our mind, the power of positive thinking. And I went, I am home. So I've been taking classes since 91. I've taught over 100 classes in this theory because it applies to every part of your life. And I became a practitioner, a minister. After 30 years of helping the parent home office, I got a doctorate. It was very nice. And during all that time, I wrote a magazine article for 7 years on the power of positive thinking, on the power of the mind. And a prisoner tracked me down and he said, I was incarcerated at 19. I'm 36, and I don't know how I'm going to survive life without parole. He was incarcerated for murder. Can your philosophy help me survive? I said, oh, absolutely. So we corresponded 13 years, and I saved every letter because he's very, very intelligent. And he had been studying all ancient history. He's African-American, African studies, brilliant man. But he didn't understand this trick of happiness, of looking at things from a different perspective. So once he started doing that, and he argued with me for a few years, he started to find things working out more.
So
And
that led
now,
you to the prison ministry, which is so interesting because I think so many times the world just points us in the right direction.
right. He said, well, in his letters, because we made it into a book. In fact, this is the cover of the book.
It's one prison journey of transformation.
let's see, how do I get this off?
Oh, don't worry about it. That's okay, because it's mostly automotive, but it's
Okay,
by
there
Michael
it is.
Nichols and Mary Mitchell. It's One Prisoner's Journey of Transformation. So
Transformation.
for people listening, so obviously you work with prisoners, people who, the gentleman that you mentioned, Michael Nichols, who have really in very dire circumstances. So if somebody's listening, how do you find happiness when your world seems absolutely devoid of any joy, any happiness? And you can't feel like you're like literally in a cell in a box and you can't crawl your way out.
Yeah. Well, I have to be very blunt with them. And one of the first things I say is my favorite author, Raymond Charles Barker, says unhappiness is lazy thinking. Now, that would be insulting, but it kind of jars people awake. What do you mean lazy thinking? I'm a good thinker. No, lazy thinking about unhappiness is not creative. You're not going to be creative if you aren't happy. And if we indulge in it too long, it becomes self-destructive in very many ways.
Yeah, that's
And
interesting
so,
too, because it just goes back to neuroscience where the brain is really it's that negativity bias, right? We're
right.
much more comfortable being unhappy than happy, which I think is so bizarre.
Well, you can find a lot of friends who will agree with you that the world's going to, you know where. And if you buy into that, then you're limiting yourself on the amount of happiness you can have. Now, my hairdresser one day, she knew I taught classes in this, and she said, I am so sick of all my clients. All they want to do is come in here and bitch and moan. And I started laughing and I said, well, what are you going to do about that? And she said, can you recommend a book? And I went, these kind of people aren't going to read a book. So I went home and I wrote a little pamphlet. There's another way to regain happiness. And I gave it to her, and all the other beauticians in her shop wanted one or several. And so they started handing them out. So it was really cute. And the most important thing is it's a choice. It's a choice. You wake up in the morning, what am I going to do with this gift of this day? What am I going to do? I give gratitude for everything I have. That's a good way to start out a day. But also, what am I going to do? Am I going to smile at people or gripe at people? Am I going to do my best today? Because that will carry me somewhere. I don't know where. My path through life has been just amazing, unexpectedly. And what are you going to do with it? Name 3 things that you carry with you every day as a burden. Now turn them into a positive statement. This thing that I was carrying as a burden, if I look at it as a step to happiness, how would I do that? What would I do? Because a lot of the things that I want to say, like depress us, are there to kind of kick butt to move forward. What is the gift I'm getting here? If I looked at everything as a gift, what is the gift? And then there's gratitude, and then there's joy. So it's all an internal thing. So it starts with a decision. You have to stop complaining. Stop telling others how unhappy you are. And then let your conversations begin with something positive. Oh, the sun's shining today. Yay. Oh, it's raining today here in California. It's a miracle. We had rain yesterday. It was like, oh my God, everybody's happy. So it's a choice. It's a choice every minute of the day. When we
It's so
get caught up,
interesting. Why do you think so many people blame other people for their situation rather than seeing that I am responsible for my own happiness? I find that so many people blame how they're feeling on their external situation. And they, as you said, complain and worry, which is like praying for what you don't want. Why do so many people blame others and their situation rather than taking responsibility for their personal happiness?
I think it's scary. They're afraid. There's fear. If all these other people can't do it, why do I think I can do it? It's you have to be self-motivated. You have to want, you mentioned intention. That is powerful energy, intention, because that's what our subconscious mind does. It's on the lookout all the time for what we're intending to do with life, what we're worried about, what we doubt about, all these things. Subconscious mind just soaks it up, and it's like a magnet, and it draws to us like energy. So if I'm depressed, I want to get out of there right away because I know once you prove it to yourself, you never want to go back. And so it's quite interesting. For instance, one of my friends who should have known better, so to speak, had been complaining for months about her car. I don't like this car. It's falling apart. I can't get a new one. I'm afraid to drive it, blah, blah, blah. And one day she was driving down the street and the car caught on fire. She got out and watched it burn out. You know, everything is energy, everything. A piece of car, you put it under a microscope, there's atoms running around there. You know, you either fill your car with love or you don't. She filled her car with worry. I don't know. Many people would say, I don't know about that. But here's another one. A friend of mine had a job she just hated. I mean, I got to get out of this job. I need a break. I need a break. I need a break. So she was going to the movie theater and tripped over one of the cement things and broke her shoulder. Got a break. Okay. A couple months later, she said, I still hate my job. I need a break. And she fell down and broke her wrist. And then she connected the two. Because when you're worried and fearful and don't like something, you're distracted. You're distracted from walking. And she said, oh my God, tell everyone I did not change my story. I didn't change my story. I need a break. So those kind of things make me laugh, but that's how simple it is. And with so many people being unhappy, it's like, oh, wake up. You're creating a situation in your mind that draws like unhappy energy. And my minister years ago used to call it the Laurel and Hardy organization of the universe. Laurel says, I need this, or I have this problem, and Hardy's on the copy machine saying, here comes more of it. Here comes more of it. So it's an interesting thing.
It is very true. And I think that the first step is just realizing it and understanding the power of your mind and that you can change. I think also I would say concrete things to do, as again, we're looking into the new year, is be really judicious about your media consumption. We had a show a couple of weeks ago with a woman who has created the Goodness Exchange. And it's all about good news. When you sit, and I know these people, you walk into their homes, right? And the TV's on 24/7, it's wallpaper and the world is going to hell in a handbasket. So I'd say, and specific tips that I give my clients all the time is turn your phone off, be judicious about your media, notice the thoughts that you have, and also notice who you're surrounding yourselves with. You know, are you surrounding yourself with positive people who are fun and are happy, or are you, hanging out with people, like you said, who are, breaking the wrists, breaking their hips, complaining all the time? Because everything is energy, and we do pick up other people's energy. So speaking of energy, we are going to have more energetic, positive vibrations. We're going to take a little bit of a break. And then when we come back, we're also going to talk about methods that you can let go of anger, because anger is a very toxic emotion that so many of us feel. We're going to talk about the value of letting go of the past and the future, and tips for discovering who you are meant to be. So stick with us. We're going to take a little break. I am talking to Dr. Mary Mitchell, and I am Dr. Ellen Alberts, the Midlife Whisperer. Check out my website, themidlifewhisperer.com. You can email me from there. Contact me if you are interested in joining me for my intention setting workshop. It is free. It's happening January 11th, and I would love to see you there. We'll catch you on the other side of the break.
I'll be there.
All clear. Great segment, everyone.
Thank you. That was awesome. So yeah, we can talk. I'm just looking at your one sheet here and talking about the things letting go and discovering who you're meant to be. And yeah, that was great. Your story is wonderful. So you have happiness in your DNA.
I do.
That's great.
Growing up, my mother's family, brothers and sisters, and there were 11 of us cousins. And when we all got together, like around Christmas time, during the day, all the parents would kind of disappear. And us kids knew we better sit down and pay attention. Then they would go into grandma's room, and Uncle Bud would put on grandma's wig, and they do clothes, and they do all this and that, and they would march through the house singing their high school fight song. And we would laugh so hard. Oh my God. It was just, they just brought happiness wherever they went. So it was a nice environment that you don't appreciate until you get out in the world in a bigger way.
Yeah, it is really, really true that can you imagine if everybody took responsibility for their own personal happiness? But we're on the mission to change that, right?
You bet.
It is doable. And yeah, so we can talk more about that. Anything you would like to cover in the next half an hour, next segment?
You know, one of the things that wasn't in the book because it happened after is that Michael Nichols, there was a prison riot at his prison. And what happened is he's so education minded that a couple of the guards jumped on him and the rest of the prisoners reacted and there was this big riot. So they threw him in the hole for, they said 9 months. And after 9 months, this panel met and said, let's just make it a year in a 7 by 9 foot room.
Wow.
When he got out after a year, they transferred him to another prison who didn't know him. And so they threw him in the hole for 30 more days. So I'm writing back and forth and Michael, how did you do it? And he wrote me his top 10 tips for surviving the hole without going crazy. Now,
Wow.
This would apply to pre-COVID.
Right.
How could we survive the early months of COVID when we were all afraid to leave our house?
20 seconds.
Okay.
Anyway, just something.
Interesting stuff. All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit about some of your other talking points here, methods.
Yes, that I like the ones you
hopelessness
mentioned.
and getting of anger. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Rock Your Midlife. Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you have been a listener for a while, I really appreciate you tuning in. If you are new, welcome. Please do leave me a review. I would love to know what you think about the show, the kind of guests you'd like to hear, and it also helps other people find the podcast. So leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And before the break, we were talking with the amazing Mary Mitchell, who has happiness in her DNA, but she has worked with a lot of people who've struggled with happiness, and she's got so much to share. And I want to talk about a number of things in this half an hour. Let's start with talking about letting go of anger. You know, anger it's a very toxic emotion, but the interesting thing about anger is it's actually pretty high vibe. And I find, you know, it's much higher vibe than depression. So often when people are kind of feeling sad and depressed, or they're looking at world situations, it's so easy to go into anger, but anger is so toxic. It generates stress, it generates cortisol, and it doesn't really serve us unless it kind of can motivate you to take action. But how do we deal with persistent anger? How do we let it go?
Question. I love it because here's the simple answer. Everybody is doing the best they can in every moment of the day. Now you'd say, oh, that can't be the best. That's a drug addict. That's a drunk. That's a this or that. It's a criminal. No, it's the best they can do in the moment. It is the best they can do. And when you look at that, what comes up through your heart is compassion. That's the best. Yeah, for them it is. And that takes a lot of the energy out. The compassion just relieves that anger. And so for my prisoners, they get angry a lot because in prison, that's what people do. It's the guards and the inmates. And I said, what if you realize that guard's doing the best he can? Because he thinks none of you care. He's doing the best he can. He has to go home to his family at night. And he'll come back and do it again. And oh my God, what a difference that made. What a difference. So I encourage everyone to stop and think, oh my God, that's the best they can do. I would say pray for them.
Yeah.
But
certainly
that's just me.
Yeah,
But
it's powerful. And I think it also goes with show yourself compassion. So when you get angry at yourself, and who doesn't? So many of us, we do something stupid or we make a mistake and we're like, oh, I can't believe I did that again. But you can turn it within and just say, you know what? I was doing the best that I could. And as long as we learn and grow from the situation, and also just, you know, understanding that we're all one. You know, we're so tribal as human beings, you know, who belongs, who doesn't belong. but we are all one species, and we have to understand this idea of common humanity. We all make mistakes. We're all doing the best we can. We are all on this planet. So that's a beautiful way to deal with your anger, is take a breath. Rather being angry when that person cuts you off or gives you the finger when you're driving, just be like, hey, God love you, and good, you're going, who knows what you are actually going through and what's happened to you in your life, and understand that they're doing the best. So let's talk a little bit too about finding your passion and purpose. And so what's the gift of being involved in a larger sense in the repairing, the healing of the world? And how do we do it? How do we find, like, you found your place kind of magically, right? You started off with what you knew you wanted to study in college, and you loved it, and then you started this prison ministry, just kind of happened. And I know a lot of women at midlife are kind of scratching their heads and going, I know I'm here for a reason. I've kind of lost my joy, my confidence. I don't feel energized about getting up in the morning. I feel like I'm dragging myself to work every day. So how do we find our passion and purpose and really get involved in terms of the larger scheme of things?
I ask people that a lot. And the first thing I ask is, where are you volunteering? Where are you giving your time, your talent, your treasure? Where are you giving of yourself without expecting anything in return? And a lot of people say, I'm not, I'm too depressed. Well, there's the problem. If you go out and just volunteer at like a Discovery shop or Salvation Army shop, or you read to children, like you mentioned before, or anything, there's so many people hurting in the world. I volunteered my time as a minister at the crisis center in Reading for a year, and I met the most depressed, difficult people that I ever didn't even know existed, actually. People walking in winter without shoes, people with mental health issues. And I just went in there and I was just there to talk. Hi, how you doing? What is on your mind today? And once you could talk, it just relieves some tension. There's somebody who cares. It's just magical. One of the things I do in my classes that your listeners may appreciate is I give them a big piece of chartboard paper. I say, lay it on the floor and draw a big circle in the middle. Now, under that circle, draw 3 things that you're carrying around with you that you're angry about or frustrated about the past. You're dragging this crap along with you. And on top of the circle, give me 3 things you're afraid of for the future. What are you worried about for the future? What are you worried about? Am I going to have a job? Am I going to whatever. Now put that paper on the floor and stand in that circle. That circle's the present moment. You can't change the past. Why drag it around? You can't fixate on the future because you haven't got a clue what's going to happen. You're in the present moment, doing the best you can. If you stay in that present moment and get an attitude of gratitude, things in the future will come into place. And things in the past you'll finally let go of. If you can let go of the crap and embrace the unknown with love and excitement, what's going to happen today? It's a whole different way of living, but we are all on that razor's edge of the present moment. It's the most powerful moment. It's the most powerful place you can be, because what you're thinking right now is going to create stuff in your future.
And it's really true that you see it too, right? So if you're looking and you're seeing the world as a hostile, angry place, well, that's what you're looking for. I mean, I always give an example of years ago, I was looking for a dog, and we decided that we were going to get a Portuguese water dog. I'd never seen a Portuguese water dog before. And all of a sudden, Portuguese water dogs were everywhere.
Yeah.
Or when I was pregnant, I never saw pregnant women. And then all of a sudden I became pregnant and there were pregnant women everywhere. So it really is, again, this inside out job that, if you said, we have this present moment. And if we are looking with kindness, joy, compassion, confidence in who we are, wonderful opportunities and connections show up. Whereas if we're, walking around with a gray mask over our head, looking at everything as like dangerous and terrible, well, that's what will continue to show up in our lives. But the cool thing is you can stop. And I love this idea that you can stand in that circle of your life right now. And I love this idea that we do get this clean slate, in 2023, as we're starting a new year, where you can decide, you know what, I'm just going to look for the good. I'm going to have more joy, more happiness, more confidence. And, I love that you said too about volunteering, and someone might think, oh, what? I don't have anything to share. Well, yeah, you do. You do, especially at midlife, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with people. I know a lot of people volunteer. They just pick up garbage on the street. They help with nature. They like doing things in nature. I live on an island in Lake Champlain, and we have 2 beautiful nature areas. People, pull out the invasive species of weeds. We do bird watching to track what's going on in the bird populations. People pick up the garbage. I sometimes, take a look at the lake and see what kinds of, bacteria are there and monitor the lake. You can volunteer with animals. There is just a host of things you can do, and you have talents and abilities. Every single person on the planet has skills and abilities. So look at everything you are and all you can do, and not all of the deficits.
They're there. I recently started listening to everything by Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's so amazing. And he says, if you're older and you don't know what you can do, find your dot, that thing that you're good at, that younger people haven't got a clue about, and then do something with that. Because younger people are looking at this world like, oh my God, I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what I'm going to do. So many unknowns. But he said, for older people, you have a dot, a specialty. And for me, that's negotiation. When I worked in the timber industry, I was constantly negotiating contracts. And at one point, I had to hire a log buyer because I was overwhelmed. And I thought I got a good one. He wasn't very good. And I thought, what did I learn? How did I learn negotiation? So I started writing, and I thought, I'm going to tell him how I learned it and what I learned. And I gave him my top 10 tips for negotiation. And it's in a brochure I've got, and sometimes I talk about that. But when he applied some of those, he immediately started having success. And so that was my dot. That's the dot. And I hope to write a book about it, because I had a lot of experience with difficult people. Think longshoremen, unions, macho guys who think I should be baking cookies. Those type of things, And then there was one fellow who, first time I went into his office, I knew new customer. He sat me in a chair lower than his desk, and all around his office were heads of African animals. And on the table next to me was a lamp made out of a zebra's leg. All intimidation.
Mm.
And in my top 10 tips, I said, ignore it. He wants you to feel inferior. Hell, I'm not going to feel inferior. I'm going to say, okay, let's get down to negotiation. And that meant he wasn't ready. He thought the intimidation would carry him through this. But no, if you can ignore all these ego statements, it helps a lot in negotiation.
And so do you have other tips? When I'm talking to midlife women, relationships are always a sticky thing for so many women. Tips on how to deal with difficult people. You have a couple of top tips that people are thinking, people they're in relationship with, whether it's relatives, friends, your boss, people at work. What are your top 3 or 4 tips for dealing with difficult people?
Well, the first thing, most difficult people are trying to intimidate you. And if you ignore that and just treat them kindly, it kind of stops them. One day, a business owner next to the business I ran got mad because one of our people parked too close to his business, and it limited the parking. And he came over and he was shouting at my secretary. And I said, oh, hi, what's the problem? And he said, she's parking right there. And I said, oh, well, why do you think shouting at her is going to help? He walked away and he turned around and said, I apologize. So, if you come at him with opposite energy, and it kind of stops things. Now, in a relationship, you of course want to know patterns of that before getting in a relationship with people that have anger issues. That's a whole nother subject.
Yeah, no, it can be difficult, and sometimes people don't change, and it's time that you have to sort of cut ties. And I think it's a big issue at midlife of where we are reevaluating relationships. I work with so many women who are thinking about divorce, right? They've been in the relationship and they've
Yes.
changed and their spouse hasn't changed. And sometimes and that certainly is okay to say, it's time for me to move on, and to
Yeah.
say also too that there are wonderful people out there too to be in. I think so many people are, as you mentioned a number of times, fear keeps us from
Mhm.
happiness. We're we're comfortably uncomfortable. We know what it's like to be unhappy, to be stuck, and we're afraid that we won't be able to get to that happy place, so we don't even bother starting.
Well, here in Redding, California, when I teach some classes, I'll hear men say, "Oh, there's no good women in Redding," and then women say, "There's no good men in Redding." And I always tell them, "You're right, because that's what you're attracting."
Mhm. Yeah, it is so
Now, if
true.
you want to change your attitude, we'll see what happens.
I'm always amazed when I talk to women about midlife, and I met my amazing fiance, and literally like 3 weeks after sort of putting myself out there, and he's just incredible. And we're super happy that there really are beautiful people out there. But you do, as you said, you have to put on the happy glasses and believe and look for the wonderful people, instead of thinking that they're all a bunch of schmucks and there's nobody great out there. So one of the questions I get from people so often is, how do I find my passion and my purpose? Clearly, you are wonderful at finding, your dot, your genius zone on so many levels. If someone's listening and says, this all sounds great, but I have absolutely no idea what I'm awesome at, what my genius zone is, what my dot's supposed to be, where do you start trying to hone in on finding that dot?
I would say whatever you may be doing during the day or a week or a month, where you feel joy.
That's
Is
always
it
a great.
playing with children? Is it, hey, it could be going to lunch with someone, and then you learn, well, then we should go out and take walks, or we should go do this, or we should go knit with a knitting class, or we should go country line dancing. I mean, there's a million things to do in the world, but what gives you joy? What kicks up your energy? And that's a sign. And then there's a dozen ways or 25 different ways of approaching that.
Yeah, look for the joy, more joy in your life, and do more of those things that light you up. And I think at the same time too, to make space for it is
Mm.
getting rid of the things that are distractions or sap your energy, sap your joy. A lot of times what I'll have clients do is just take a big sheet of paper, and on one side put all the things that drain your energy, and then on the other side put all of those things that light you up, that make you feel joyful, that energize you, and then see, on the things that drain you, what can you actually stop doing? What can you eliminate from your life?
Well, and that's another thing I liked about Tony Robbins. He says, if you're doing something that's a waste of time, what are you doing? You'll never get to that joyful place if you're filling up your time, even an hour here or there, doing something that has nothing to do with anything.
Well, it's also really helpful too to actually track your day and look at, like, where does all of your time go? Like for me, I'm really trying to carve out an hour of the day to just do things that I love. I'm been working on playing the ukulele, doing more reading, doing more writing, but just carving out that hour a day. I think that if we just got off our cell phones, when you think about how much time people spend, I don't know, I'd be curious, what's your cell phone habit like? And how do you help people sort of find the time to do more of what lights them up, what brings them meaning and happiness?
It took me years to even buy a cell phone because I really cherish my hours. Now I don't even turn it on. And people say, I tried to get you on your cell phone. I said, well, don't do that. I never turn it on. I don't want to be interrupted during the day. When I go to write a story or an article or work on something, I need like 3 hours of time. And I realize I need it. And so I rearranged my day to have 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon of uninterrupted time, except for people like you.
Well, I appreciate that you've taken your valuable time to spend and share. So I'm really curious, what does spirituality mean to you, and and how have you found your spiritual practice? Obviously, you went back to school to become a minister. So how do you define spirituality, and what does it mean to you?
First, I'm more scientific. And when I learned that it's all energy, the rocks, the paper clip, the computer, it's all energy. And it takes form, but it can change form, like water goes from to gas to uh, you can freeze it, you can broil it, and energy takes a lot of different forms. And when I realized that, I started paying attention to where I'm using my energy. Is it going to help me, or is it going to drain me? And now I teach classes in that, because if you're down on no good women in red, that's where your energy is going. And if you come to classes and learn how to think, am I thinking positive or am I thinking negative? And you just have to be the guardian of your mind, the guardian of your mind. Because who wants to be around grumpy people other than grumpy people? Now, right now in my life, my husband has he's had 2 bad hip surgeries and can't walk without a walker, and he's got short-term memory loss. So it's all being very challenging for me. And so every morning I have to look at the day and just be fully present moment, and be there when he asks me something 6 times, and laugh when he forgets what we just did. And so it's a whole new part of life, and it's going well. But sometimes I think, our soul has a journey that it's taking, and it's going to be continuing on the journey when we leave this human form. And maybe part of his journey has enabled me to have blocks of time to do my work. I don't know, it's a mystery, but I look at it that way. How is his incapacity helping me?
That goes back to your earlier point of seeing everything as a gift. Even, most people would be like, oh my gosh, I'm a caregiver. This is so difficult. I am losing my patience. I don't know if I can take this anymore. And you're like, well, gosh, I'm learning patience. I'm learning compassion. It's slowing me down. So yes, I want to know how do we bottle you, Mary? So I guess we have a couple more minutes. If you could sum up the 2 or 3 things of obviously it's about positivity is like the most important thing in terms of happiness, keeping your mind positive, seeing positivity in various things, staying focused on those things that bring you joy and happiness. What's 1 or 2 sort of parting words that you would give people who are really wanting to be happier, more joyful, more confident, more energized in the coming year?
Number 1, realize that being positive is energy at work for you. Because when people say, oh, positivity, it's like, yeah, I said a positive thing, but hell, it didn't work. So no, so you just negated it all, And so you have to pay real close attention. Am I really feeling positive? Am I really feeling gratitude? Am I really glad it's raining here in California? And stay in those mindsets. And it takes work. It takes work, because we get in these ingrained patterns.
Yeah, and I would say too, in terms of knowing and realizing it, I feel it in my body. Because emotions are felt experiences in my body. So right now, because this conversation has been so effervescent, that I can feel that effervescence. I feel it in my gut. We talk a lot about the microbiome and this sort of living gut we have, which is so important for our immunity, even for things like depression. We're finding that the microbiome of people who are depressed is different than the microbiome of people who are happy. So just feeling that in your body of saying, how am I feeling joyful today? Am I feeling energized? And if I'm not, maybe you can, answer this. And I have some of my own ideas. What's 1 or 2 things that I have in my toolbox to shift my vibe? For me, it's, I can listen to music and dance around. I can hug, the people in my household that I love. I can sometimes just lie down and take a nap. What's sort of in your toolbox? Like when I'm sure you have those moments where you're just dealing with your husband and going, I just told you that and you asked me again, I'm going to scream, because you're human. What's like the one or two things that you have in your toolbox when you feel like, oh gosh, I'm not in that positive, happy place that I want to be? And we only have a minute, so maybe one or two
Okay,
super quick things.
It's a confession. I love country line dancing. And I was on a country line dancing group before I remarried, and I love it. So even though my husband doesn't care for it, when I turn it on and dance around the living room, I am on top of the world.
All right. So country line dancing for you. Yes, for me, music, dancing is so, so awesome. So want to say thank you so much for joining. How can people get in touch with you, get your books? Dr. Mary, what's the best way for people to reach you?
My website is Engaging Grace, because that's what I think we're doing all day long. engaginggrace.me.
engaginggrace.me. So if you have enjoyed this conversation, if you want to grab Mary's books, and I know she's got more coming, go to engaginggrace.me. That's engaginggrace.me. Thank you so much for being here. I wish you all such a beautiful 2023. Again, if you are interested in that intention setting workshop, it's happening on January 11th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to record it as well so that you can grab that if you can't make it live. If you make it live, you will also get a free copy of my book, Rock Your Midlife. The information is in the show notes. You can also go to my website and connect with me there, or go to my Instagram, which is _midlife_whisperer, and you will be able to get all that information there. So really, the bottom line is you are in charge of your happiness. It really comes down to guarding your mind. There are so many amazing books and people out there who can support you, but it really comes down to you. So have such a beautiful 2023, a happy new year. And thank you so much. I'll see you next year. I'm Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer. Take such good care of yourselves. Midlife can be challenging. You may be sandwiched between growing kids and aging parents, dealing with menopause or a health issue, and trying to find work-life balance. Or maybe your life looks good on the outside, but inside you're feeling stuck and wondering how to get your confidence, energy, and joy back. Hi, I'm Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer, and I hear you and I've got you. Think of me as the one-stop shop for all your midlife needs. I'm a psychologist, registered dietitian, nutritionist, board-certified health and wellness coach, and mindful self-compassion teacher. I'm also an author and podcast host with over 30 years of experience empowering midlife women. I provide inspiration and wisdom to help you transform your health, your mindset, your relationships, and your life so you can rock midlife.